All right, so this is the randomizer I referred to. Essentially on the left here, pay attention right now just to column C and D. This is the list of the top 10 finishers from last year's A. Going forward, it would be 8 from the previous A, and then the top 6 from last year's B. My best understanding of who that is, I know these bottom 2 we can move around. So what I created was a randomizer to randomize scores. So essentially, this formula here is saying randomize between 10 and 40, and then it's weighing in a factor of 1.32 for the one team and 1.02 for the 16 team. So there's a slight weight to the randomness, so it's not completely random. This is all being read through formulas. So essentially, once you randomize it, it will figure out the point differential, turn it into a positive number, adjust it if it's over the cap. For these examples, I'm capping at 24. Real life, I believe it's 36, but that could be something we discuss because point differential is going to make a huge impact. You'll see. Then it determines who's the winner, what their point differential, loser, their point differential, and then back over here, it will look up over there how many times did they win, how many times did they lose, what's their total point differential. You can check out the formulas if you want. So what you do is you go to formula, there's a calculate now button, and you'll see every time you press it, a different set of scores comes up. So let's find one that randomizes it so at least 2 of the top 2 teams are 2-0, because top 4 teams, I mean. But let's see what we can find. Okay, so I see just 2. DC. Oh well, and the stars is 0. Okay, we're gonna go with it. So what we do is I then take this section, because this is now calculated, and it will continue to recalculate if you don't do this. So we're gonna just copy, and we're gonna paste special. You really just have to get over the scores. All this other stuff will always be the same if the scores are frozen. So now, essentially, you have a randomized score outcome for the first 2 games. So if you sort from largest to smallest of point differential and then largest to smallest of the wins, you now have your new top 8. So just to make sure we don't lose this data before we keep going, I'm going to paste it down here. So again, just paste the values. So here's our top 8. I'm going to now enter in the new ranks, and based on an assumption I made, which I'll go over in a moment, I'm proposing to pit up the number 1 re-ranked team versus the number 9. 2 versus 10, 3 versus 11, 4 versus 12, and these are looking up the re-ranked value. The reason why I chose that was because essentially, as you see, these white highlighted teams popped up from below the line here, or they were last year's B division. So you're going to have anywhere from 1 to 4 teams pop up because they're going to play amongst themselves, and there will be a 2-0 or a 1-1 with a good point differential team that will match up with the other teams that started here. So ultimately what that means is now you have 2 teams, and because I've already moved these things in here, you can see, like if you look back down here, you can see that there was the bubble really was 1-1 teams that in point differential. So that's why I capture this. And now that I've stuck this column of information, it's filled in here, and it did the same thing. So now it's randomized again. You can calculate it a few more times if you really just want to get the matchup you want. But essentially, again, we're trying to just create data so we can make a decision on if this is a theory that works. So again, I'm going to paste the values, and now it's locked in. Do one last large to small, large to small. This is your final. The riots. How do they do that? All right. So again, here's your final ranking. So what happens according to this randomized example, The Stars, the Hancocks, the Toros, and Houston all fell down to drop to play against the lower 8. And then what I would challenge you to do is look at like what the scenario was for these people that barely made it or didn't make it. So look at Denver Summit Red. Coming out of the first day, they were 0-2. They either had to win to have a chance with a great point differential, or at least just figure out how to get a game in. And they played, they played the Atlanta Kings, and the Atlanta Kings came out of day 1 2-0. So is Atlanta motivated to win, to stay up, or what's going to happen? That's what I wanted to make this randomizer, so we can keep what if scenarioing what's going to happen with these outcomes. So back to kind of my notes, and I'll wrap it. So basically, as I said, 1 to 4 teams from the prior year's B division will re-rank in the top 8 of the Aloha Pod, or whatever we're going to call the top pod in Canada. If you play in the re-rank top, there's my proposal of going from the 1 to 9, and I think we can debate this if it's even part of where we get to talking to. But my proposal is to match up 1 versus 9, 2, 10, 3, 11. And that way, you're just kind of forcing who's hot to play who's like could be hot or could be falling, and not necessarily the 16, because that's not what we're trying to do. So this is hopefully trying to keep the movement moving. And I propose that in this third game matchup, we would make minor seeding alterations to avoid any prior play teams, same regional city. And again, that's kind of behind the scenes. No one knows, or we do it in a very calculated, determined way. My last page of notes you can read on your own, but this was basically my instructions for what I just showed you, so I won't bother reading it to you. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope you found this interesting, and we'll be looking forward to discussing with you all.